Everyone say happy birthday, Calvin Horton. Say happy birthday, Calvin Horton. Happy birthday, Calvin Horton. So, I just had to write down and collect my thoughts because this case, the story of Calvin Horton, shows so much of the white supremacy and the white hypocrisy in the United States of America. So we have to put the timeline into perspective, right? Calvin Horton was protesting on the 27th. On the 27th, we have to realize that this is when the police lied and said that it was a medical incident that killed George Floyd, right? And the media ran that narrative. So on the 27th, to the rest of the world, to the state, to the police, George Floyd died from a medical incident. But the people who saw that video knew that it was a murder, and they knew that they had to be in the streets protesting to say that it was a murder. And on the 27th, none of those police officers had been arrested yet. Not a single one. So again, to put that timeline into perspective, Calvin Horton, along with the other protesters that did what they needed to do throughout the city, were responsible for locking up all 4 of those police officers. So we have to give a hand to Calvin Horton and his sacrifice to protest in these streets, to fight for justice and fight for what he knew was right. So while protesting, rightfully so, Calvin was murdered. And this was the beginning of the Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter debate, right? We had people, business owners, white folks that were just mad about what was going on, saying they support the police coming into the city and trying to do the police's job for them, right? How can you back the blue and say you support the police, but then come into a city with your guns ready to protect property because you don't think the police is doing a good enough job? If you support the police, you should have kept your ass at home and let them do the job that you think that they're out here doing. And it's the same thing with Kyle Rittenhouse, right? He supports the police, he backs the blue, but he's gonna grab his AR, he's gonna grab his long gun and go out to protect buildings because he thought the police weren't doing a good enough job. So do you really back the blue, or do you just think that you can also terrorize black folks and people who fight for black lives? And it's another way to point out the hypocrisy is when you are killed by the police. All these back the blue folks, these racist white folks will say, well, you shouldn't have broken the law. George Floyd shouldn't have broken the law. Police wouldn't have came, they wouldn't have killed him. They say if you comply, you won't die, that type of thing. But then they show up to break the law. These people, like John Ripple, show up to break the law. In Minnesota, you cannot protect your property with your gun when you can retreat. You cannot take life to protect your property, but he did it anyway. Come on now. And when people fighting for these police to be held accountable, to say that this was a murder, when they are killed, they'll try to justify it in any way that they can, right? Kyle Rittenhouse got to go home after murdering 2 protesters. Didn't even spend that first night in jail, got to sleep in his own bed after walking by the police, after they knew that he had killed 2 people. He got to walk home and go to bed that night. John Ripple spent however many hours, 72 hours in jail. There are people, 48 hours in jail. There are people who are facing protest charges and have spent more time in jail than John Ripple ever has, right? So they say that if the police kill you, you shouldn't have broken the law. But then if a white person kills you for protesting that police murdered, there's no way that they could have broken the law. That's the narrative that they want to point out. That's what they want to say. So in short, when the police kill a black person, not only will they say that it's justified, if you protest that murder, you can be murdered by someone who claims to support the police but takes the matter into their own hands, and your death and your murder will also be justified. And that's the reality of being a black body in this country. Not only can they kill you, when you have to fight to say that they murdered somebody, you can then be murdered, and then they'll also say that wasn't murder.
Speak, brother.
Every time, and that's how it goes, and that's how it continues to go, and that's why we continue to show up, because we simply cannot exist in a country where this continues to happen. But we know that it's going to continue happening until all of these systems that are in place are recreated, are uprooted, and recreated with the rights of every single individual in mind.
Come on now. Come on now.
Not only should Calvin Horton still be here today, Calvin Horton should have never had to protest on the 27th, because when they saw the murder of George Floyd, we should live somewhere where they know that that's a murder. It shouldn't take a city burning down and people coming out, people being killed in the streets, just to say that y'all killed somebody else in the streets. And that's pretty much all I have to say. We will continue to show up. Y'all can kill us. They're going to keep killing us. They're going to keep killing black people. They're going to keep killing protesters. They're going to make it easier for people to kill protesters, because they know that we have the truth on our side, and we are going to keep fighting until that truth is seen by every single person. And if you don't see that truth, we're going to make you see it.